Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Palantir has just been awarded 4 new patents that they filed for a couple years ago, and they finally got the entire documents that are given by the US federal government and the patent department office in order for them to become official patents. In this video, we're going to dive deep into these patents, talk about sort of what they are, what they're trying to get at here, and ultimately how they're going to help Palantir's business move forward. For those who don't know what a patent is, it's essentially a proprietary mechanism that is legally granted by the government in whatever state or country you're operating in that gives the company that's filing for that patent a right to exclusive control over something that they've created. It's basically this ability to say, hey, I've invented something. I've created this form of technology, this piece of software, this hardware that no one else in the world should have access to because I had the ability to be able to create it. And if someone else wants to use it, it's essentially stealing from me if they don't give me credit in some capacity, whether that's financial or some other way, because I'm the one who created it. So the whole goal of a patent is for the government to reward innovation by allowing you to keep your innovative ideas. There's intellectual property, which is like your brands or your logo, and then there's actual patents that exist for hardware and software. There's stuff you create that literally shouldn't be able to be replicated because you're the one that has actually innovated and created it. Palantir is a company that has a lot of patents, and the reason they have a lot of patents is because their software is some of the most complex software in the world. So if they don't patent some of the stuff they have, then it's easily replicatable by other companies, even though they're not going to be effective at like actually executing on it because it requires a lot of data that also is very proprietary to Palantir. So there's a lot of different things that go into being able to get patents, but one of the key things about a technology company is that they try to patent as much things as they can because technology markets and technology companies are cutthroat competitive, and the more things you have exclusive to you, the better chance you have of not being able to get sued. I mean, there was an entire debacle from like 2010 to 2012 of Apple suing Android over the touchscreen phone. Apple was like, we've innovated the touchscreen phone, and Android was like, this is ridiculous. Anyone should be able to make a touchscreen phone. And there was a whole back and forth in court cases based on patents. So if you're a technology company, you have a lot of patents. Into my computer here, this is from a Twitter account that is really bullish on Palantir. This is their @ sign right here, so you can go follow them. And they have tweeted a bunch of different patent reports that have been released by the federal government. So we have the first one. We're going to read all 4 of them and sort of analyze them. System, methods, and non-transitory computer-readable media are provided for managing pipelines of operation on data. A system may access data and provide a set of functions for the data. The system may receive a user selection of one or more functions from the set of functions. The system may generate a pipeline of operations for the data based upon the user selection, and the pipeline of operations may include the functions selected by the user. Now, what does this mean? It's really hard to decipher a lot of these patents. As you can see, it was filed August 7, 2018, assignee Palantir Technologies, Palo Alto, California, even though they're not there anymore. They are in Denver, Colorado. And it was granted on January 11, 2022. So sometimes it can take years, in this case, 4 years, for you to be able to prove your point, for you to be able to go to court and like justify why you deserve to have this patent. But if you can get it done, then it's ultimately proprietary and integrated for you. Now, in this context, the way I read this is that a system may access data and provide a set of functions for the data, meaning if a user is trying to select a function throughout an integrated operating system that has probably in Palantir's case, millions and hundreds of millions of data access points, then the ability for the system to generate a pipeline of operations for the data based upon the user selection. So like you select a bunch of pieces of data within a operating system, probably Foundry, that you are using to try to come to a decision for something that you need to do. And then the system generating the pipeline of operations, meaning a bunch of different things that the system needs to do in order to give you the most effective decision for the thing that you need to do, is the proprietary function that Palantir is claiming here. Now, that sounds kind of like broad. It's like, how can Palantir claim that? There's obviously a lot more into that patent that Palantir is going into that we don't have the information for, but that's sort of the gist of it. Again, it has to go with data, operating systems, and the ability for systems to recommend decisions based upon that data, which is really Palantir's bread and butter. If their platform can't recommend the most effective decisions for you to take, then their platform really doesn't have any value. Okay, the next thing we see is systems and methods are validating data in a data set. And by the way, this is the abstract. So this is the paragraph that just defines the patent. A data set including data to validate and a validator to use in validating the data is selected based upon user-generated input based upon actions of a user with a graphical user interface. That was a lot to say, even for me. The validator is applied to the data to determine whether one or more statistics generated through application of the validator to the data is valid or invalid based upon the validation routine associated with the validator. A data quality report indicating whether the data set is valid or invalid based on the determination of whether the one or more statistics is valid or invalid is generated and selectively presented to the user through the graphical user interface. This is kind of ridiculous, But the way I interpret this is that there's a user interface, there's a like screen in front of you, and you are putting a bunch of data into a data set, and the systems and methods that Palantir is trying to patent are the systems and methods that try to validate if the data means something or if the data doesn't mean something, using statistical through applications that generate statistics that are determining which data is important to show to the user or not show to the user. So if I open up an application like Foundry, for example, and I insert 5 data points, the validation mechanism of that part of Foundry, of that software, which is what Palantir is trying to have like a patent over, that is going to figure out what parts of those data should go into a recommendation or should not go into a recommendation, i.e. should be validated, is what they're trying to control. Again, super complex stuff, but interesting none the least. Okay, the third one. Methods and systems for providing a user interface and workflow for interacting with time series data and applying portions of time series data for refining regression models. A system can present a user interface for receiving a first user input, selecting a first model from a list of models for modeling. The apparatus generate and display a first chart depicting a first time series data set depicting data from a first sensor, generate and display a second chart depicting a second time series data depicting a target output of the apparatus, receive a second user input of a portion of the first time series data set, and generate and display a third chart depicting a third time series data set depicting an output of the selected model and aligned with the second chart of the target output and updated in real time in response to the second user input. If you don't believe by now that this software is pretty complex, this should let you know. The way I think about this right here is that regression models are these like highly complex mathematical equations that software companies have to use in order to build out an understanding of all the data that they're integrating in one place. So in this case, Palantir is saying, okay, the user's inputting data and the integrator of the data is trying to model how to make sense of that data, right? This first time series data chart. Then the user is putting in a second piece of data, then a third piece of data, and the system is trying to figure out how to represent that data on the graphical user interface, but also how to understand that data in relationship to the regression model that is simultaneously being created, probably through machine learning algorithms that are extremely advanced, in order for that data to be represented to the user. So there's multiple forms of the systems and internal methods within this patent that are validating the data as it's coming in real time through a regression model that Palantir is trying to have an exclusive patent for on the interface of the workflow that a user is going to be operating with, most likely for Foundry. Okay, the final one. In some embodiments, a method comprises obtaining a video stream of a portion of a geographic area, the video stream comprising a plurality of video frames, each of the plurality of video frames captured at a respective time frame. Contextual metadata is obtained, the contextual metadata associated with one or more objects located in the portion of the geographic area at a second time, the second time being before each of the respective first times. The contextual metadata is inserted into one or more of the plurality of video frames, thereby causing the contextual metadata associated with the one or more objects to be overlaid on one or more corresponding portions of one or more of the plurality of video frames. Now, I don't know where exactly. Oh, here we go. This one makes a lot of sense. Systems and methods for generating augmented reality content. So the way I think about this is Palantir obviously knows that augmented reality, virtual reality, all that stuff is going to be a big thing in the future. Like that stuff's not going away. So Foundry being at the forefront of the technological innovation that is VR and AR means that they're not going to create like a VR AR device, right? They're not going to create like those glasses that you see everyone talking about. They're going to create operating systems that app developers are going to be able to use in order to integrate highly complex data sets in order to create augmented reality experiences for users that are going to be, wearing those glasses in a meaningful way. So in this case, when we're talking about those glasses, and those glasses you're going to be using to operate and access augmented reality in the virtual reality world, Palantir wants to be able to create a video stream portion of a geographic area that's likely being recorded in some context, and that contextual metadata of the geographic video recording of that area integrated within the data set that's actually understanding that video seems to be what the patent is here. Again, there's a lot more stuff to it, but that's kind of the TLDR. So for example, if I'm making a video augmented reality application in which a user wears glasses and they're able to interact with the world in an augmented way, or they're able to augment their own reality, then that means the developer of the application that is creating that app for you so you can enter into the metaverse needs to have operating systems to integrate the data that's required to make that application in the first place. So if I'm making an app where you put on your glasses and you're able to see like your friends at a concert in real time, there's a ton of data that is required in order for that augmented reality app to actually make sense. And what Palantir seems to be doing here is they want to create a method that comprises the video stream of a portion of a geographic area and integrate that into their data sets, being able to understand that geographic area and then ultimately make that into an augmented reality experience, meaning the geographic area that the video is recording within this patent is going to be integral towards the software they're creating for augmented reality to make sense of that data and to interpret it. So if I'm at a concert and I see someone singing, right, and there's a augmented reality microphone, meaning it's not a real microphone, that microphone has tons, I mean like millions of data points for it to be even perceived as a microphone. The whole nature of augmented reality is that the world looks the same. It's just we can change certain parts of the world and we're in this, new 3D world. I can be in a concert in Sweden by putting on these glasses, but it still has to look like it's Sweden. It still has to look like it's a real place. So there's a ton of data involved in order to make Sweden look like Sweden. And there's a lot of augmented reality mechanisms that have to happen in order for that reality to actually become augmented. When they're talking about a plurality of video streams being inserted into one or more contextual pieces of metadata, with more objects being overlaid onto corresponding portions of the plurality of video frames, to me, they're talking about different sensors that are involved with interpreting these video streams in order to make the augmented version of those video streams, because at the end of the day, this stuff is all video related in order to be augmented, to make sense to the user when they're using that application. Highly complicated stuff, but it's stuff that they are trying to do. Now, the cool thing about these 4 patents is even if we don't fully understand them, even if we don't understand what they're trying to do with them, these were filed on average 2017, 2018, September 12th, April 12th, 21st, 2018, and they're just getting approved on January 11th, 2022. So the nature of a company applying for patents 4 years ago means they knew that this is before Palantir went public, they knew that they needed proprietary control over some of the stuff they were building, specifically in relationship to data system modeling and data system aggregations, in order for no other companies to really have an advantage or to be able to use the proprietary methods that Palantir is using. So it's a good thing to me, if you're a shareholder invested in this company, to see these patents actually being granted to them, because that means governments and courts have agreed that yes, they own the rights to the systems and methods that they have created. Legally, they have a right to use these things. And because legally they have a right to use these things, they have a competitive business advantage, because now that they can use these things, they can actually help their clients, because no one else can help their clients because they have these patents themselves. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Obviously, it's really good for us to get patents. How do you interpret these patents? How do you see these patents being used in the future? Are there any use cases in which you see these patents actually making sense? Looking forward to reading the comments. My name is Mitt. I'll see you guys in the next one.